What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and sorry, I know haven't been making a lot of videos. Hasn't been a super lot to talk about. There's some, things that I probably could discuss. Not exactly, when I say there hasn't been a lot to talk about, I mean like, the Dolphins haven't really made a lot of moves. Obviously, the season just ended, so on and so forth. Officially, now that Super Bowl's over. But I do have things I want to talk about, including, the season overall, the Dolphins season. I know I've been, mentioning I'm going to make that video soon. I am going to make that real soon. But this video is going to be about the Dolphins draft class this year. And there's two perspectives I want to talk about it from. I'm going to get right into these articles. One is talking about it a little bit before, is talking about it before now. So in other words, like right after the Dolphins drafted their class, just kind of the initial perception of the draft class. And then, a little bit now and just some more, updated view, considering how they did, at the end of the season. Real quick, just as a side note, as you guys know, ever since the Dolphins fired Adam Gase, decided to tank the 2019 season and destroy the team, rip the team apart, etc., etc., I have disagreed with damn near every move that they have made because I don't agree with the tanking philosophy. I don't agree with stripping it down to absolutely nothing, the team that is. I don't agree that, quarterback is the most important position and all you need is a quarterback and then you're good, blah, 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 right? So there are a lot of philosophies that typically tend to, exist in the NFL and, that I disagree with. So I personally don't believe that they are on the right track to, find the success, particularly the consistent and steady success that they want to. Anyway, so obviously, having said that, I would have done things way differently in this particular draft. Obviously, you could go back and look at my previous videos for how I would have done, the draft before that, etc., etc. Obviously, I wouldn't have gotten rid of Tannehill. I would have done that draft way differently. I would have taken an O-line in the first round, a defensive lineman in round 2 instead of trading for Josh Rosen and doing that bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But all that's in the past. We're here now. As far as this past draft, I wouldn't have taken Tua anyway, no matter what. It's not because of the kid's potential, right, and his talent. That's not the question. The question is his size, his health, and then obviously whether or not that can translate into the NFL with, the added factor and context of can he do it in the situation that he's put in, right? So, the team, the organization he goes to, and the things that they put around him. Anyway, I wasn't really impressed with any of the draft class, not really last year's either. I mean, both of these draft classes so far under Brian Flores have been really just, if I'm keeping it real, so far they haven't been good. I mean, they've already cut 3 guys from their first 2 draft classes. Isaiah Prince, Curtis Weaver, and there's one other that I can't think of off the top of my head. Tua could potentially be traded, so look, and not to mention, like Michael Dieter from the first, he's probably not going to be even on the team for that much longer because he's trash and fucking is just slipping down the depth chart. Their draft classes are not very good. All right, anyway, let's get into these articles, though. This first one comes from Alan Pupar. He writes for, Sports Illustrated, but he writes about the Dolphins, A Tale of Two Dolphins Drafts. A lot of this I actually agree with. The Miami Dolphins, there were like 1 or 2 things that I disagree with, which we'll get to. The Miami Dolphins didn't get a good grade for the 2020 draft from the NFL website, but it's more fair at this time to evaluate the 2018 haul. The headline alone is not very flattering. Rocky start for Dolphins first rounders, which is absolutely true, though. None of our first rounders this year really, did much. Tua obviously struggled, to say the least. Also got a couple injuries. Minor injuries, sure, but injuries nonetheless, which is obviously a major concern for an injury-prone quarterback who is also undersized. Austin Jackson was meh at best. Let's see. And then Noah Igbenogany, he was pretty much not even there. Like, he pretty much didn't even exist. He hardly ever played, and when he did, it was out of absolute necessity because of injury, and he pretty much got fucking torched. So, and like I said, this year, I would have done the draft way fucking differently. I would have taken, instead of Tua, I would have taken a top offensive lineman. With our second first-round pick, I would have taken, you know, probably a defensive lineman, most likely a pass rusher. Then with the third one, they could have easily gotten the top safety in the draft. With the second fucking, or with their second round pick, they could have easily gotten J.K. Dobbins, who I would have taken, or they could have even gotten Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you know, somewhere early on, which is, you know, the Chiefs running back who, you know, performed really well this season, right? So I would have done things way differently. I think that they're fucking this shit all up. I don't think they know how to properly evaluate players. I don't think they know how to properly make the right decisions, etc., etc. So anyway, that's how NFL.com presented his review of the 2020 draft among AFC East teams, complete with grades. The Dolphins received a C in the story by Gennaro Felici. I hope that I am saying that right, because I honestly don't know. I'm actually going to go into, that's the second part of this video though that I want to talk to you about, because I'm going to go through his article too and give you the specifics on what he had to say. It was the lowest grade given to any team in the division, trailing those of the Patriots, Jets, and Bills, who all got Bs. The Bills got a B-. While it makes for interesting reading, assessing a draft after 1 year isn't really fair. Pause there for a quick second. So, as you guys know, my philosophy is you can't truly evaluate a player until they've at least had their rookie contract, right? Because I just don't think you have enough body of work. It's not a big enough sample size before that, right? You got to give them time to, you know, get past their rookie year and their rookie mistakes. Maybe they don't even play their rookie year. They got to get adjusted to the NFL, learn their playbook, gain chemistry with their teammates, etc., 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 right? Sometimes it takes a couple years. Even Josh Allen, right? It didn't take him until year 3, or it took him until year 3 until he really started to fucking fly, right? So there is that. So I don't think you can actually truly label somebody a bust or a success or any of that until you've given them at least their rookie contract. Now, there are plenty of examples of players who, even after their rookie contract, it's still not even quite fair to give a full-on definitive answer, because maybe they had a couple years where they flashed. Maybe they had a couple years where it was a bit down, right? So you got to give them that opportunity to really prove, and also so you don't make the mistake of, you know, cutting bait too early and then they go on to be successful elsewhere. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I do agree that you can't really truly, you have to give them at least that amount of time to be able to have enough, you know, data, evidence, information, so on and so forth, to be able to make that kind of assessment. Having said that, I disagree that you can't evaluate and judge at all. You just have to do it off of the body of work, right? So it is fair to give them an assessment off of their first year. Last year, for example, right? Take Christian Wilkins. You know, his first year, his rookie season. I didn't think he was very impressive at all. Frankly, I thought he left a lot to be desired. But everybody wanted to point out that he led all rookie defensive tackles in tackles. I frankly don't give a shit about that. It's cool, don't get me wrong. Like, it's nice, and that's good on him, and that does show some good things. But I frankly don't give a fuck, because it doesn't tell the whole story. Everybody wants to look at that and praise him, and good on him for that. I'm not trying to take that away. But again, it's not the big story, and it doesn't show the reality of the situation. Because he and the entire Dolphins team was not good. The run game was shit. They didn't have any kind of fucking pass rush, etc. Now, he and the Dolphins team did improve. We will actually get into that more in the overall the overview of the entire season in that video. But still, I believe that Christian Wilkins leaves a lot to be desired. But he did improve this year, and, you know, it even though I still think he needs to show more. It was an improvement. And last year, it was fine to judge him, not judge him necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to put it, but it's perfectly fine to evaluate the body of work that was put there. So yes, he led, all rookie defensive tackles and tackles, but with the rest of the information and how bad our run defense was, how little pass rush we had, et cetera, and then when you watch the games and the tape, when you put all of that together, what it shows you is that what he was doing was showing good effort, right? Sticking with the play and chasing guys down and helping to get the tackles, which is great and wonderful. And that's something you want to see out of, especially a first round pick, right? However, that does not show that he's actually doing what his job is meant to do. Because what his job is supposed to be is shut down the run game and also get some pressure, which he didn't do. Anyway, so it's perfectly fine to evaluate that, but it's not fair to call him a bust yet. I was personally really disappointed with his rookie season and thought that he needed to do way, way better. With his second season, I still want him to show more, but him in particular showed an improvement, and the team also did show an improvement. I do personally, and we'll get more into this in the season overview, I do personally believe that it is the team overall was a bit of an aberration. I don't think that they are a 10-6 team. I don't think that they're a playoff team. I don't think they're that good. I don't think that they have that much chemistry or the culture is good enough. I don't think that they're stable. There's too many coaching changes, et cetera. So, but they did make improvements. And so it's fair to evaluate that, right? But it's still not even complete. You got to give Christian Wilkins, for example, at least another couple years and the rest of the draft classes. Now, again, so far they've cut 3 players out of their first 2 draft classes. They're not performing very well overall, right? There's a lot of improvement needed to be made from their first round guys back. Now, I'm going to do a quick comparison. We'll get into this a little bit more into some details, but when you compare the first 2 drafts of Brian Flores so far in this regime versus Adam Gase, they're night and day. Adam Gase's drafts were fucking great. Fucking great. He got 2 or 3 superstars and then a number of serviceable guys. And each one of his drafts, serviceable ranging from backups to starters, right? And at least half of his drafts, each one of those 3 was at least probably around 50% hit percentage, right? So success rate. At least half those guys were successes, whereas the other half, were just or whatever, or didn't really pan out. That's actually really good rates for a draft. Right? Adam Gase's, and frankly, I loved Adam Gase's draft last year with the Jets. I think the Jets are stupid. I think people anyway, I'm not going to get into my, Gase talk right now, but I think that whole situation is stupid. I think Gase does way more things. Anyway, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we live in a world, that actually doesn't really care about, fairness, equality, efficiency, things that are logical or reasonable or make sense. We don't live in a world that cares about data and information and, facts. So unfortunately, a guy like Adam Gase isn't going to be successful because he's a bit more abrasive, I guess, if you will, than what these people in power want. In other words, and here's an example, Stephen Ross, right before firing Gase, told Gase, hey, I want you to tank the 2019 season so we can get a quarterback. He said no. And then got fired. And so anyway, and Gase gets blamed for a lot of things that are not his fault. Anyway, point is, Gase had really good drafts. What superstars can even name one superstar so far from the 2 drafts that Brian Flores has, picked? I'll wait. I'll give anybody as much time as they want. I'm sure some people will be like, oh, Tua's going to be that guy. Well, okay, maybe, but so far, now again, my philosophies, I don't think you can totally evaluate his rookie season, which wasn't particularly great. For him as an individual, he lucked out in a lot of ways, individually, in the sense of, he threw a ton of interceptions. He really, frankly, should have had more interceptions than touchdowns on the season. But he got super lucky because guys just would not hold on to him. And again, it wasn't because he wasn't throwing the interception. No, he threw them. They just came back by penalties, or the defender couldn't hold it, etc., etc. So, there really aren't any superstars. And it's even hard to find serviceable guys on these draft rosters, right? Or starters, etc. Some of these guys are being forced into the fucking matter because we don't have, good players at that position, or because they just recently stripped us down to fucking bare bones, but frankly, like Austin Jackson, he played meh, at best, right? Anyway, so moving on. Let's continue. And that would bring us to the 2018, because I've said a lot. I do want to get through these articles. So anyway, and that would bring us to the 2018 Dolphins draft. And 3 years down the road, we'd have to say it actually was a very good haul, which is absolutely the case, as I have been saying for quite some time now, right? All of Gase's drafts were really fucking good. We're actually going to look at each one of them a little bit more. I'm going to add to this, but let's look at this one because we're 3 years removed from this one. As a reminder, the Dolphins' 8 picks in 2018 ended up being safety Minkah Fitzpatrick in round 1, tight end Mike Gesicki in round 2, linebacker Jerome Baker in round 3, tight end Durham Smythe, and running back Kalen Ballage in round 4, cornerback Cornell Armstrong in round 6, and linebacker Quentin Poling, and kicker Jason Sanders in round 7. That draft is amazing. Real quick though, let's go back and look at Adam Gase's first draft. Laramie Tunsil, superstar. Xavier Howard, superstar. Kenyon Drake, I would say he's not superstar, but he's definitely in between serviceable starter and superstar. He's a really good starter. Leonte Crew, whatever. Jakeem Grant, I love him, but keeping it real, he is your third or fourth receiver on a team, right? And he is kind of a gadget guy, etc., etc. I think he's a great piece to have on any team, right? And I think he's a good pick in round 6. So I think that's a successful pick overall. Whatever. Even though he might not end up being with the Dolphins for that much longer, I hope he is, because I love the guy personally. But still, another really good pick. So this is the 2016 draft. Adam Gase's first draft started with Laramie Tunsil, superstar. Xavier Howard, superstar. Kenyon Drake, really good. Okay, so boom. This fucking draft class is rolling. Leonte Crew, whatever. Jakeem Grant, good pick. And there were 8 picks in this draft. So half of your 50% are good picks, including 2 superstars and a really good serviceable starter. Jordan Lucas, whatever. Brandon Doughty, whatever. Thomas Duarte, whatever, right? But you got to take some chances on some guys. Those were the later round picks. The picks that they missed on in Adam Gase's first draft were 2 7th rounders, a 6th rounder, and a 3rd. But they got superstars out of their first and second round picks, a really good serviceable fucking starter in round 3, and then a really good pick out of round 6. First year out of Adam Gase was great. Year 2, Charles Harris, first round. Okay, I admit that was a bit of a miss, but you can't get them all. Rayquan Mcmillan, I really loved it. Even last year, he was our entire run defense on the team. And the run defense this year was kind of meh. They were okay. They definitely left a lot of room to be for improvement, but they traded him, and I think he's a really good player. That was a good one. Cordray Tankersley, Isaac Asiata, Devon Gottschalk, great pick. Vincent Taylor, great pick. Isaiah Ford, great pick. Even though Vincent Taylor is not on the team anymore, obviously we love Devon Gottschalk, still on the team, great player for us. Isaiah Ford, still with the team as of right now, has been a really good player. Obviously, he's another one of those, third or fourth receivers on the depth chart, but still a really good player. Half that class, Rayquan Mcmillan, Devon Gottschalk, Vincent Taylor, and Isaiah Ford. All of those really good players, ranging from, I would say, either good solid backup to serviceable starter, right? So that was Adam Gase's second draft, but it's a good draft class to complement your first one and some of the other guys that they had brought in through via free agency to supplement. Then you go to the 2018 draft class. Minka Fitzpatrick, star. Mike Gesicki, really good fucking player, serviceable starter, and probably on the Kenyon Drake level, right? Jerome Baker, also really good player. Durham Smythe, great. The first half of that draft class was great. Great. The second half, kind of whatever. Caleb Lodge, Cornell Armstrong, Quentin Poling, whatever. But then Jason Sanders, the current kicker we have, who's been a boss for us in round 7. Adam Gase's drafts were phenomenal. But let's take a look at Brian Flores so far. Christian Wilkins still leaves a lot to be desired. Michael Dieter was complete trash and hasn't played for shit. Andrew Van Ginkel's been, alright and has shown some flashes. But, that's kind of about where I leave it. Isaiah Prince, not even on the fucking team anymore because he got fucking cut. Chandler Cox also got cut, no longer on the team. There's 2 of the fucking draft picks from the first 2 classes already gone. Myles Gaskin, he's good. He's probably, if I'm being honest, from my perspective, probably one of the best from this draft class. Maybe just slightly behind Christian Wilkins, or pretty close. But this first draft class, if I'm being honest, is just kind of like really meh at best. Let's look at the second one. Tua struggled, got a couple injuries, still needs, leaves a lot left to be desired. Austin Jackson, man, Noah Igbenogany didn't really fucking play and didn't play well. Robert Hunt, meh. Raekwon Davis, meh. Brandon Jones, meh. And a lot of these guys are meh at best. Solomon Kindley, meh. Jason Strourbridge, I'm not sure he even fucking got any snaps, maybe a couple. But didn't fucking do anything. Curtis Weaver cut. That's our third fucking player from our first 2 draft classes. Blake Ferguson, Malcolm Perry. Now again, to be fair, they still need time to be developed, etc. So you can't give a full definitive evaluation and so on and so forth. But it's just not even comparable. It's not comparable. Gase's drafts were phenomenal. So far, the Brian Flores drafts have been pretty shit. I'm just keeping it real. Meh at best, but if I'm keeping it real, pretty shit. Alright, so let's continue on with what he had to say. Of the 8 players, the first 4 are starters, and Sanders just earned All-Pro honors in his 3rd season. That, by any measure, is a good success rate. The big asterisk goes next to the name of Fitzpatrick, of course, because the 11th selection in the 2018 draft has become a bona fide star, only with a different team. And that is the fault of Brian Flores and this organization. And look, I'm just going to say this now. There's 2 things that people mention as arguments on the other side, right? To defend Brian Flores and the Dolphins organization and to condemn and chastise, Minka Fitzpatrick. First of all, everybody said that he was just being a baby and complaining. Wrong. Okay? First of all, they were playing him at 8 different positions. Slot corner, boundary corner, free safety, strong safety, and various linebacker positions. That is absurd. And he shouldn't want to do that. His body style is not made for all those positions. His skill set is not for it, and that's way too much workload to put onto one fucking person. He was completely 100% in the right for that. Also, not wanting to tank the fucking season. Minka Fitzpatrick was 100% in the right, and it was 100% Brian Flores, Chris Greer, and the Dolphins organization, their fault for fucking that up and for getting rid of him. Also, people wanted to be like, oh, but he's a slot corner and you don't draft a... No, he's a free safety. That's the position he primarily played in college. That's what he's best at. That's his natural position. And that's where he's been balling since he went to the Steelers. balling out since he went to the Steelers. That's why Adam Gase and the Dolphins drafted him to be a free safety. It just so happened in his first season, out of necessity, he also did play a little bit of boundary corner and slot corner. In college, he also did play a little bit of those positions, and in fact performed really well at slot corner, as he did with the Dolphins. Because he's used to it, and because he's really good, and he's a really good fucking player, and he's smart, etc. But then in year 2, year 2 for him, first year of the Dolphins with Brian Flores, they just started using him in way too many fucking places, etc., etc. Anyway, but the fact that Fitzpatrick ended up being traded logically falls more on head coach Brian Flores for allowing a conflict to get to the point where Fitzpatrick wanted out. That is 100% true. It is Flores' fault. He's a piece of shit, fucked up sellout. And look, I don't care, bro. Like, I don't care what people say. I've had people get in the comments and be like, oh, you just don't like him because he's black. No, I despise him as a person because he is a sellout piece of shit who decides to take the side of the white male billionaire owner over, let's say, a person and player of color like Kenny Stills, when Kenny Stills was 100% in the right. He's a liar. He's a liar. He lied straight to the face of Laramie Tunsil, told him he wasn't going to trade him, and then traded him. He, even this year with Tua, right? He said, oh, after the 49ers game, there's no reason. Why would I put Tua in for garbage time when, what is he going to do, right? He literally said that. He said, I don't see any reason. It doesn't make any sense. And then did it literally the following week, right? He's a sellout piece of shit. And I don't like him because of that. I don't like him because of how he treats people. I don't like him because of the things that he's doing to this organization. Has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he's a black man. I think it's even more despicable because he sells out other black people like Kenny Stills and Laramie Tunsil, just so that way he can fucking appease the, desires and whims of the racist white male billionaire owner. So that does make him even more piece of a shit, and that's why he's a fucking sellout to his own people, right? To black folks everywhere. But anyway, and also because he doesn't make the right football decisions, because all he's doing is following the orders of that racist white male billionaire owner, Stephen Ross. Anyway, also, he was 100% on board with and acquiesced and effectively produced a tanking season last year. And again, for the final time, I'm not going to argue this with people. They tanked the 2019 season. It's indisputable. I don't care how many games they won. It's irrelevant. They did the couple fundamental key things of tanking. Strip your roster down, accumulate draft capital and cap space. That's what they did. That is what they did. They absolutely 100% tanked the season. They did not field a competitive roster, and that was on purpose. Brian Flores facilitated that, both in by making sure that the roster was not competitive in 2019 via roster moves, stripping the team down, etc. And he admit to that, and also because of his choices elsewhere. His decisions in player personnel, constantly leaving. This is an example I use all the time. He fired his offensive line coach 2 weeks into training camp because he wouldn't put Michael Dieter and Shaq Calhoun into the game. The new offensive line coach finally did that. Shaq Calhoun actually turned out to be one of your best offensive linemen that season, but was constantly relegated to the bench and made inactive, even though he didn't have any kind of injury, was not on the injury list almost ever, and was playing pretty fucking well. That's a bit strange to me, unless you realize that it was because he was trying to put the team in position to lose, not win. But there's also numerous examples of how he mismanaged, misused timeouts and challenges. And then also there are plenty of examples of play calling that was at the very least suspicious and strange. Until you realize, again, it was on purpose because he wasn't trying to put the team in position to win. Anyway, unless you want to buy into the narrative that Fitzpatrick came in with an attitude problem, in which case he shouldn't have been drafted that early. And there are people that will buy into that. But there's literally zero evidence. Zero evidence. There is none. There just isn't none. Because, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Coming from Alabama, under Nick Saban, the things he did there, the stories they talk about his, in his first year with the Dolphins, the tremendous adversity he had to fucking overcome, how good of a kid he is, how much of a hard worker, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just total bullshit. Anybody that wants to use this fucking argument that he's got a fucking attitude problem is absurd, stupid, and only trying to paint a picture that fits their personal narrative. In any event, the Dolphins ended up getting a first-round pick from the Steelers for Fitzpatrick that was used on tackle Austin Jackson, who's going to have to step up his game to match the exploits of Fitzpatrick, who has been named All-Pro each of the past 2 seasons, or match the exploits of another player that they traded away, Laramie Tunsil, who plays at the same position, because he's not anywhere near as good as Laramie Tunsil. But we still call that a good pick in retrospect. Oh, absolutely. The fact that he's not on the Dolphins anymore doesn't matter for the overall picture. It matters in the context relevant to the Dolphins, and obviously he's a failed pick for the Dolphins. But he was a successful pick overall because the player himself is a success and has done wonderful things. Gesicki has gotten progressively better and on the verge of becoming one of the elite receiving tight ends in the NFL. Baker had a really strong finish to the 2020 season. Smythe is a versatile two-way tight end, and we've already discussed Sanders. Ballage was a bad miss, though it happened in the 4th round. It's a bad miss because the book on him out of Arizona State was that he wasn't nearly as effective as a back as his physical attributes suggested he should be. But again, 4th round pick, whatever, who cares, doesn't matter. And again, I actually don't even think Ballage is that bad. I just think he's a very specific use back. I think he's only really good for, short yardage, goal line kind of stuff. And you also got to have other backs that are on the roster that can threaten the defense. So it's not just the defense keying in and stopping everything because they know that this guy's really only good for, a couple very specific things and is not good at everything else. Armstrong has appeared in at least 5 games in each of his 3 NFL seasons, the last 2 with the Texans, so he certainly wasn't a washout of a 6th-round pick. Pulling hasn't been able to get his career going because of injuries, but if you look at the overall picture, the Dolphins did a very nice job of picking players in that 2018 draft after a rather nondescript first year for that rookie class. The rookie year for that class, I'd say it was a little bit better than just nondescript, but you take in the rest of the context of that season. Injuries were just outrageous this year, and that's really what derailed us. But yeah, so let's see. It was a great rebound after an utterly forgettable 2017 draft for Miami. Okay, again, pausing there. It was not utterly forgettable. That is not the proper context or framing. Because again, as we looked at, that draft class was solid. It wasn't the best out of the 3, but again though, and if you look at just that draft class specifically, you don't look at any other context around it, you don't look at the draft class before it or the draft class after it, right, etc., etc. You could just look at that second, and and if you don't look at it in the big picture of the 3 draft classes under Adam Gase, etc., whatever, on its face you could just say it was a meh draft class, especially considering the 1st round pick kind of, washed out or whatever. Charles Harris wasn't exactly a success. But it was an alright draft class overall. Again, Davon Godchaux, really good, especially in the 5th round. I think Vincent Taylor is a really good player and has played well for the Bills. Primarily, I think, is where he went after us. Isaiah Ford's still a good... And when you add in those other 2 draft classes, 2018 and 2016... Adam Gase's drafts were fucking great. Fucking great. Anyway, let's move on though, because I do want to get to that other article, and now I'm 30 minutes into this video. Because I do want to get into... So that was Alan Pupar's take on the article written by Gennaro Felici. from NFL.com, which is the article I'm going to get into now. Let's see, just real quick, he gave the Patriots a B, obviously. I mentioned that, the Jets a B, and the Bills a B minus. For the Dolphins got a C, and this is what he had to say. So, and this has been updated a little bit after the season with, their current starts and games played, etc. Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback, he was 5th overall, 10 games, 9 starts. Austin Jackson, 18th overall. Obviously, he's a tackle. 13 games, 12 starts. Noah Igbenogany, cornerback, 16 games played with 2 starts. So he did play a little bit in each game. Round 2, Robert Hunt, offensive tackle. Anyway, whatever. Robert Hunt, Rayquan Davis, Brandon Jones, Solomon Kinley, Jason Strawbridge, Curtis Weaver, Blake Ferguson, Malcolm Perry. Notable undrafted free agents, Salvan Ahmed, and Lynn Bowden was a preseason trade acquisition. Miami made 3 first-round picks, and all 3 experienced growing pains in year 1. Absolutely true. Granted, they weren't exactly put in positions to flourish. I also agree with that, again, but that's because I don't think that this team and organization knows how to properly evaluate players. I don't think that they know how to make the proper decisions when it comes to who to draft, where to draft players, how to handle free agency. Again, I don't like being big spenders in free agency like they were last year, and I think that overall, even though this year it did sort of pan out for them, I think overall it's going to end up being a bust. Let's start with the marquee topping selection of Tagovailoa, who, yes, was taken 1 pick before Offensive Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert. The truth is that Tua wasn't even the best quarterback on his own team in 2020, as the rookie was outplayed by bearded barnstormer Ryan Fitzpatrick. Quarterback wins be damned. And that is absolutely true. Ryan Fitzpatrick, in reality, gave us the best chance to succeed, and did played better than Tua Tagovailoa. It is a fact. Even with the luck that Tua experienced, and even though he should have really thrown more interceptions than touchdowns, even with that luck, he still was very much outplayed by Ryan Fitzpatrick. Maybe this shouldn't have been a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise because of the context. When you throw a rookie quarterback into the fire, especially in the midst of a season that is super fucked up, it's pretty expected, right? And especially with the context around him, the organization he went to, the lack of, talent around him, the hardships that the offensive line had to deal with, the fact that they weren't particularly very good. He didn't have all that great of skill players. The defense played well and certainly made, drastic improvements from the year before, but let's also remember they were in the fucking trash heap of the NFL the year before, right? Statistically. So when you're at the bottom, there's only one place you can go is up, or I suppose stay at the bottom. But anyway, yeah, so he didn't exactly go to the fucking best place either, right? And then on top of that, he is a smaller quarterback with injury concerns who also did sustain 2 injuries. He did sustain a minor ankle injury this season, as well as an injury to his throwing hand. Anyway, so it shouldn't be because of all of the data and the context. Yes, he still needs to adjust to the NFL. He didn't fucking, when he was inserted, strangely, randomly out of, for no reason, it seems, because it wasn't out of necessity. He didn't even know the full playbook. He's a left-handed quarterback, which, changes the trajectory, the launch point, the spin on the ball, etc. All of that, chemistry with his teammates, so on, so on, so on. Let's see. Not to mention, he was less than a year removed from major hip surgery when he was handed the starting reins. Tua might not have been operating 100% in 2020, which could help explain the lack of zip on some throws. I mean, if that was the case, why even fucking put him in to begin with? That was part of the reason why I didn't want to, because I didn't want to get him injured, which he sustained 2 injuries and then didn't play very good, right? Also, on top of that now, though, because you did put him in, now you've given people the opportunity to have a bad taste in their mouth because he didn't perform well, which is 100% their fault. So the fact that we're even talking about, maybe he's not the guy, or maybe he's not going to be a superstar, maybe we should trade for him, that only happened because they had to put him in and then he didn't perform well. If they put him in and he performed like Justin Herbert, it would have been all well and good. Nobody would be fucking saying anything. He would be definitively their guy, etc. But now you've opened up the door for doubt because you insisted on putting him in when it didn't make any sense whatsoever, and he clearly was not fucking ready for it. And then on top of that, you also got him hurt. Now, it's fair to say that, you know, some of those lower leg injuries could have affected his play, but it didn't help that he also got an injury to the thumb on his throwing hand because they insisted on putting him in. Anyway, to be fair, if I'm not mistaken, that thumb injury was in practice, and that could happen no matter what, but that was at the point where he was taking even more reps in practice, particularly with the first team, because he had got elevated up to starter. Whereas the majority of practice probably would have been, Ryan Fitzpatrick, first team, whereas, and, you know, things would have been easier. It wouldn't have been like, you know, as, full steam ahead, etc. He wouldn't have, you know, I would venture to guess that the starters in the first team probably put a little bit more effort and emphasis into the things that they do because they know that they're going to be playing, as opposed to, like, you know, second, third team, scout team. They probably don't put quite as much energy into it because they know they're not going to be playing. They put what they need to have a good practice and to make sure that they're learning the things that they need to and getting out of practice what they need to, but don't put in 100% effort so they don't get hurt. Anyway, perhaps he'll come back in the 2021 campaign with more torque in his compact throwing motion. Another thing that would help Tagovailoa in year 2, a better supporting cast. Miami's skill position talent is deficient in quality and depth. Sure, Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki are nice options in the passing game, but neither is a true number 1 target, and production fell off a cliff after those two. The front 5 did the rookie quarterback no favors, ranking 28th in Pro Football Focus's O-line rankings, which is pretty terrible, honestly. Of course, the front 5 itself was green as can be, with 3 rookie starters, including Jackson at left tackle. Just 20 years old at the time of his selection, Jackson came into the NFL as an upside play, long on athleticism and short on technical refinement. Thrown into a sink-or-swim situation in year 1, Jackson kind of just treaded water, with uneven play surrounding a mid-season trip to injured reserve with a foot injury. Essentially, the project remains a work in progress. Mcmillan, Miami's 3rd first-round pick, was actually the youngest player in the NFL this past season, and he played like it, albeit in a limited role behind established corners Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. Jones's injury early in the season briefly thrust Mcmillan into the starting lineup, and it didn't go well, with Russell Wilson cooking up a storm at the rookie's expense. Now, as underwhelming as Miami's returns were in round 1, the Phins got plenty of bang for their buck in round 2. I wouldn't say that necessarily, but there is surely some improvement, especially considering the first rounders had such a struggle. Let's see. Many assumed Hunt would be a guard at the NFL level, but injuries led to him starting 11 games at right tackle and more than holding his own. He played all right. Hunt's versatility will be an asset as the Dolphins continue building the O-line and looking to get the best 5 guys in the field. Yeah, but versatility doesn't necessarily translate into what we want. Meanwhile, Davis earned Pro Football PFWA, I'm not sure what that is, all rookie team honors as a 6'7", 330-pound wall in the middle of Miami's defensive front. Now, that is an intriguing piece. I am curious to see how he progresses. I hope that they can do something with him. But they really do also need to get at least 1, if not 2, really good outside rushers to allow Davis, Godshaw, and Wilkins to do what they're supposed to do in the middle of that defensive line, which is 1, primarily stop the run game, and then 2, cause some interior pressure for the quarterback and help to collapse the pocket. Meanwhile, let's see, hold on. Now we understand why Brian Flores could barely contain himself on draft night when Davis was available. Whatever, I don't really give a shit about that. Because, again, I don't like Brian Flores. I think he's a piece of shit coach and a piece of shit person. And, whatever. But it is what it is. I don't make that say. And despite that, I still think that, because my base philosophy is that a regime, GMs, front office, head coach should be given a 5-year window, because much like players, I don't think that it can be properly evaluated until they've given enough, time, enough body of work, etc. And so, I don't like him. I think he sucks in a lot of different ways, but I still think he should be given the full window to prove whether or not, you know, this plan that they have will in fact work out. I think it's been, you know, pretty much an utter disaster up to this point, despite the 10 wins this past season. But I do hope that they prove me wrong. I want them to prove me wrong, and we will have to wait and see. And they certainly have a very, 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 very large hill to climb in actually succeeding at doing that and proving me wrong. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspectives. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Phins out.